Small to medium-sized firms have been put under severe pressure in the last year. They've seen a steep decline in demand, cash flow and credit facilities have been tightened and companies have been forced to act as creditors to one another. But will the government budget today take action to help? Joining us are Jim Curran from the Irish Small and Medium Enterprises and Small Business Owners, Rachael McDaid and Oisin O'Reilly. You're very welcome. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. SME, of course, has called for a government plan, a stimulus to sort of activate the market, and the backbone of the economy is basically run by people who are organising and employing people in small businesses. I mean, what are you hoping for today?
Well, look, it's absolutely necessary in today's budget that you have a pro-business budget, you have a pro-small and medium enterprise budget. As you said, small businesses are suffering hugely. A lot of companies are on the edge at the moment. What we want to see is a stimulation package. There's a lot of talk about tax increases and cuts, but it's hugely important that there is a stimulus package there. For instance, cost is a huge issue for small businesses. We're completely uncompetitive at the moment. We've gone from 5th to 28 in the last 8 years in the competitive league. We need to see costs, we need to see local charges addressed. It's hugely important. Our energy costs went from the second cheapest to the second highest in Europe over the last couple of years. The government needs to address energy costs, and hugely important is the cost of employment. Small businesses are extremely labour intensive and wages are a huge element, wages are a huge cost. We need to address the wages issue, and one way that can be done is through employers' PRSI. What we want to see is a reduction in employers' PRSI to help companies maintain employment aid. And this is hugely important, is the maintenance of employment. There's over 1,000 people a week being made redundant in this economy in the private sector. It costs €20,000 on average for each individual through foregone taxes and through social welfare to maintain them. What we're saying is that they have to maintain employment. You need to reduce employers' PRSI and you need to reduce the cost of doing business in this country. It's absolutely paramount. The
cost of doing business in this country just seems to be outrageous, from everything from insurance to rates, and as you say, labour costs are just huge. But I mean, the working population, how are you going to broker pay cuts? Because is the PRSI reduction of that, is it enough?
Well, look, the reality at the moment is that there is pay cuts happening within small businesses. We did a survey recently that showed that half of all small businesses have had to implement pay cuts across the board, with average pay reductions of 13%. And the reason they've had to do that is quite simple, is to try and maintain employment. That is hugely critical, and it brings on to a wider issue. And you're talking about today's budget as well. What we would be advocating is that we don't want to see, there's going to be tax increases, but you can't tax your way out of a recession. I think Jim Power was on earlier on, and he made that point. We would prefer to see more reductions in current expenditure.
Would help too, and of course,
but particularly the public sector. This is a huge issue. The public sector, even last week, the Central Statistics Office outlined that there's been an increase of 5,000 jobs in the public sector. That's absolutely ridiculous at a time that an additional 1,000 people a week are signing on in the private sector.
Unlikely, though, that the government is going to make a major cut of the public sector this time out, unless they do it through a sweetheart deal where everybody gets paid a high redundancy rate to take a leave. But anyway, we'll talk about that as maybe another argument. I want to bring in Oisin and Rachael as well. Rachael, you've been running a small business now for some time. You've already had to get or lose some employees, I suppose, is the kind of way of putting it. How difficult is it, and what are the main problems in running a business now? Well,
firstly, I was just saying earlier that people have said that if your business can make it through a recession, and even what happened in my circumstance, that I actually set up my business at essentially the middle of the recession, that you'll survive. But it's not a very comforting thought. And in my particular circumstance, I did let staff go, and you know, working on an overdraft, the banks were not forthcoming with credit facilities. I realised that I was encountering difficulties with the bank. I decided that I would have to, if I wanted my business to survive, that I would have to think of a different avenue to try and get investment, because it wasn't coming forward.
Funded capital. So exactly. Are you basically saying then that the banks wouldn't give you money, or made it extremely difficult to deal?
Exactly, and then I mean you have their bank charges, and you know, it's not easy at the moment. And really, what's needed from the government, and hopefully will be in today's budget, is an alleviation for small to medium-sized businesses to keep everything ticking over, because there are so many people relying on this particular sector. And I understand about the public sector, but in actual fact, the public sector are comfortable in their positions. They don't face the same difficulties that people in private enterprise and private employment face.
pushing. Tell me a little bit about the amount of time you might spend on paperwork every week. You know, stuff that you feel you shouldn't necessarily have to do to keep the revenue commissioners happy, to keep other agencies happy.
Well, I would suppose in terms of administration, we'd spend, I suppose, 20%, 25% of our time during the week, or my time definitely, just looking after paperwork and dealing with, you know, dealing with the bank.
Yeah.
Oh, most definitely, it's a lot of red tape, particularly with the amount of returns and the detail. And thankfully, we've never had a revenue audit. And you know, God forbid, if you get one of those, you lose an entire week, if not two, either preparing for it and following up afterwards and that. So there's a lot of red tape there.
OK, what would you like the government to do today then? What would help your business?
Well,
Tell us a little bit about your business.
Well, I suppose I run a wedding planning and event management company, and I suppose one of the things that we've noticed is the supports for small and medium businesses, if you're not in manufacturing, information and communications technology or international trade, are zero. Yeah. There's nothing there for you. Beyond your local network with your county enterprise board, the few training sessions that they run that are, while they're worthwhile, they're very basic. That's it. You know, it's I suppose, concrete funding and support available at a local level. We were in a position towards the end of last year where we would have been able to increase our staffing levels and create an extra 10 jobs over 3 years. Now, unfortunately, because we couldn't get the tax reliefs, because we didn't fall into one of those 3 sectors, we had to scrap the plan. So there's 10 jobs that we could have created that went down the toilet because we couldn't get the grant.
All right, we're hearing a lot of stories like this coming out of this damn recession, as they say. Obviously, you're lobbying hard. I mean, our government, or is government listening? Are the key people, the people who can make the decisions, are they taking note of what's going on, do you think?
Well, the simple fact is it's got to the stage, Aidan, that they have to take notice. I mean, small and medium enterprises is the backbone of the Irish economy. Over the last number of years, we have been in the main employment creators. Unfortunately, the situation has changed now that we have to let people go. But the reality is, if you want a sound economy and you want to develop the economy, it has to be done on the back of small and medium enterprises. So we need the supports. We need to ensure that our businesses are kept going, that they're kept afloat. We all appreciate we're in a recession, but trust me, if you give the support and set the platform for small and medium enterprise in this country, we will get you, small businesses will get you and get the economy out of the situation we're in, and will help to support growth into the future. It's absolutely essential.
We need to be more productive, don't we? And we need to watch costs. Rachel, your business, of course, is Legal Line, which is a brilliant idea. You don't have to go and see a solicitor. You can ring up. I think it's a minimum fee or a set fee of €42 for a quarter of an hour.
That's correct.
And you go directly into the solicitor's practice. Exactly.
Legalline.ie. Essentially, it's a service for people who don't want to go into a solicitor's office or don't have the time. They can speak to a solicitor instantly and directly over the telephone.
All right. Thanks for joining us this morning, and we'll be all watching that budget this afternoon with huge interest, to say the very least. Thank you indeed.